Hi everyone, I'm KLMeri.
And I'm Soda.
We are back with another podcast, and again about Star Trek Lower Decks. Recently, Paramount dropped the second season of Star Trek Lower Decks in August, and so far, I think five-ish episodes have been aired,
Yeah,
and with a total of 10. But Soda and I have decided to watch the first two episodes, and we're going to be talking about what our expectations were, what we were delivered, and maybe some new characters, and just in-depth look at the first two episodes and probably what we want to see for the rest of the season.
yeah. What were your expectations before you watched the first episode?
Okay, so last time we did a full-on review of season 1.
Yeah,
And we, at that time, Soda, we talked about what we would like to happen and what we thought would probably happen.
yeah,
And so my first expectation was, well, my hope was Boimler was gone. It would stay gone. And my expectation was Boimler is one of the main characters and will come back to the
yeah,
ship.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, I as much as I don't, it's not that I hate Boimler, but I could live without him. I think the show would be fun without him, but yeah, there was no way he wasn't going to come back.
Exactly. And we can talk about the manner in which he comes back and, his pseudo replacement and a lot of good things that come
Yeah,
along with that later in the podcast. My other expectation was something would change, possibly for the better, in Mariner's relationship with her mother. And
yeah,
I feel like it was a very realistic delivery of what we got, at least from the first two episodes, and so I was fairly satisfied with what we
yeah.
were
I
presented.
agree. I agree.
What about you?
So Well, by basically what you said, as I said in that other episode that we recorded, I also expected, going more into the background of the other characters, Rutherford and Tandy. Um, which I'll say right now, we didn't get much in these two episodes, but I did see beyond those two, and we do get a little more, at least about Tandy.
You did a good thing. You watch more episodes. I'm actually trying to slowly let myself watch the rest of them because I know we have to wait until the mid October before all the episodes are available.
Oh yeah, but that's why I watch like as they come out. They come out once a week, so
Yeah, I'm
that's
not good at that. I'm a marathoner.
okay. I see.
I have only watched the first two episodes, but I wouldn't mind being spoiled if you drop a hint or two. So you won't bother me if you do that.
Well, well, I'm glad because I already just did. Yeah, we do get more about Tandy's backstory, a little more, not
Oh,
not that much.
excellent.
And when we get a little more about Orion culture, which I really really like, I want to see more of that.
I
Like
agree.
it's fascinating.
So, what were you expecting with respect to Tendy and Rutherford?
Well, just that we get to explore their backgrounds more. We know a lot about Mariner, and she is an interesting character, and it's very obvious that there is much more to learn about her, as much as we already know. But Tandy and Rutherford are they are main characters, but they are also kind of minor characters compared to Mariner and Boimler.
Yeah.
Mariner and Boimler feel like the main characters. Tandy and Rutherford feel like the not exactly side characters, but like kind of
The
secondary.
secondary main
Secondary.
characters.
Yeah. So I personally would have liked to see more of them, specifically them, like without Mariner and Boimler.
Agreed. Well, shall we just jump into the first episode?
Yes.
Okay. So, we are going to talk about episode 1, which is Strange Energies.
Yeah. And this episode was so full of original series references, like so many.
It really was. It was very entertaining.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about why. The long and short of it is the episode actually opens with Mariner back on the holodeck, which you realize, well, might not realize at the beginning because it looks like she's stuck in a Kardashian prison.
Yeah.
And she's going to be tortured. Then, of course, she has a prison break. She takes Kardashian torturer as a hostage. But then you see Boimler stuck in the prison, and he actually references himself as, part of the holodeck. So you know at that point that she's actually in a simulation. And I guess this is a thing Mariner does now when she's working through something stressful. She, creates this holodeck dangerous simulation that just makes her all around feel better, get out her frustration. So yes, that is what she's in the middle of doing.
And this entire sequence is also itself a reference to the Next Generation episode, whose name I forget right now, but the one with the famous 4 lights.
Yeah. In the middle of the simulation, she keeps talking about how frustrated she is with her mom.
Yeah.
And working with her mom. And they're trying to be team players, and it's just not her jam.
No. And then we get to see her interacting with her mom.
Yeah.
Not on the holodeck, on the ship in real life. And their interaction is so awkward and uncomfortable, and that they're trying to force it. They're trying to be forcefully nice to each other, and you get how uncomfortable it is. Like, you can see the other characters around them get how uncomfortable it is. No one likes what they're doing.
Yeah, specifically Ransom seems to be stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Basically, the Cerritos is on a second contact mission with this planet Arpagos, and they are about to wrap up on the planet. Ransom goes down with an away team. Mariner goes with him, but she is allowed to do her own thing on the side because her mom is playing nice.
Yeah.
And letting her do her, side missions.
Yeah.
Or basically whatever the heck she wants to do, as long as it's not causing a lot of trouble. They're on the planet and in the middle of Mariner completing her side mission, which is cleaning the grimy buildings of the natives so that they will actually clean up their city a little more.
Yeah.
She activates some alien technology.
Yep. Yeah, harnesses strange energies.
These strange energies that Ransom actually saves her from being hit with them, and he gets imbued with strange energies.
Yes.
And immediately we are taken into a Gary Mitchell situation.
And it's not just we are saying it's a Gary Mitchell situation. They call it a Gary Mitchell situation.
They literally bring up an image, animated image of Gary Mitchell and his godlike powers, and Tiana, the CMO, is giving a rundown of all the bad things that could happen. In short, because Ransom is who he is, he has some beef with the captain of the Cerritos because she has been, I will say, giving so much attention to Mariner, and it's all fake.
Yeah.
In the way that they work with each other, and it's called like tension in his relationship, or from his perspective, has caused him to be like pushed to the side.
Yeah.
He also has quite the ego, as we know. He's like Riker on speed. And so this is just a whole culmination of hard feelings and ego makes him a very terrifying Gary Mitchell like god.
Yes, exactly. They're trying to figure out, how to deal with it. And there are, as we said, there are a lot of references to Gary Mitchell, and of course the solution that keeps coming up is just, throw a rocket throw a really big rock at his head.
Well, how did Kirk do it, they ask. Dropped a boulder on him.
Exactly.
It becomes apparent during this crisis where Ransom is at first basically trying to take over the planet, and then he detaches his head and becomes a big head in space, and tries to, eat the Cerritos.
I feel it's a reference to the famous, giant hand in space.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, he brings out his hands at one point.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh no, the hands! Brace yourself for the hands." In the middle of this crisis, we see that Mariner and her mom, Captain Freeman, still don't see eye to eye on solving a problem.
Yeah. The thing is you felt the tension when they were talking about something inconsequential, like the cleaning of the city.
Yeah.
But now it's an actual crisis, and the friction there is, it's a lot more evident.
So Mariner wants to blast Ransom with everything they have in order to overload his powers, which I personally thought might explode him.
Yeah.
And Captain Freeman wants to take the safer route of trying to talk Ransom down.
Yeah.
And solve it in a more peaceful manner, or a less violent manner, I suppose you might say. They go back and forth during this whole time, like, trying to figure out what works, and also yelling at each other. Until the point at which Ransom calls them out for their behavior and says, "You guys are so fake together. This is what you're really like. This is why you've made everything difficult to handle on the ship." And, and then a little bit of whining about why he's not the number one for the captain.
Yeah.
It's amazing episode. Like you said, a lot of references. Not just around the Gary Mitchell episode, but definitely specifically tailored those type of encounters with God-like beings who just come around and mess with the various starships and the crews.
Yeah. And eventually, what solves the problem is kicking him in a very sensitive place and dropping the boulder.
Yes. So basically, Ransom's at the point where he is decided he's going to be captain of the ship, and he really is going to hurt Mariner's mom and the crew. Yeah. And so she just starts kicking him where the sun doesn't shine repeatedly. Yeah. I almost felt bad for him once he was, had reduced back to his normal size, and he kept having, she just kept kicking it. Every time he showed a sign of acting up. And then, of course, Tiana, who was amazing this entire episode, just like a Starfleet doctor, she's like, "I'm going to solve this problem." She's like, "Let me try to inject him with something." She, leaped on at him at one point while he's flying around. So she was definitely hard at work trying to solve the problem herself, and eventually she brought the boulder, dropped it on him, and then fixed him afterwards, of course.
Of course.
Some of the, I'd say, more minor commentary in the episode. Mariner is very angry at Boimler for leaving.
Yeah. She is. We can see that in the opening scene where she in her, her frustration outlet of a program, she creates, a character of him and lets him be tortured by Cardassians. And she is very, very angry at him. But another interesting thing they set up this episode is Captain Freeman is up for promotion.
Yes.
Mariner's mom. She could become a captain of a more important ship, basically. And she really wants to be captain of a more important ship. So that is also something that will come back. They set up a few character points in this one.
So what did you think about Mariner's dad being the admiral who like contacted her, because she immediately changed her. She's in the middle of screaming and dealing with this crisis, and then she realizes he's on the horn and has to go like, "Oh, nothing's wrong, everything's fine." What did you think about their interaction?
Well, we've seen them interact in previous episodes too. They're
But over Mariner.
yeah, they have an interesting relationship. They are married, right?
I don't know. I cannot.
Yeah,
I still cannot tell if they're married. They seem very. Of course, they're very familiar with each other. They have a daughter together, but
yeah.
it's almost like I can't pinpoint when they're being family, like acting like family or close partners, and when they're being professional.
Yeah, it's a very weird relationship. I'm not sure if they're married or maybe they were married and are divorced. Maybe they never married. I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, they have a very interesting relationship, and I would like to see more about that. Oh, and that what we talked about was the main point, the main plot. There is a B plot about
Yes.
Tandy and Rutherford. So Rutherford, lost his memories last season, and he slowly regained them. But there were this episode we find out there were a little bit of personality changes that came with regaining the memories. And well, they are very minor, but Tandy becomes very, very worried about them.
Extremely worried.
Yeah.
To the point that she, concocts this whole theory that his brain is going to melt out of his nose.
Yeah. First of all, he tries to date the same woman he went out on a date with in the first episode of the first season. Which, back then it didn't work out, but this Rutherford decides to give her a second shot. And also he likes pears now, which is also very concerning to Tandy. So Tandy becomes very, very worried, and most of the episode, and she tries to fix him, and most of the episode you're kind of wondering, is it because she's jealous of the woman Rutherford is dating, or is it because she's genuinely worried about him being sick with something?
Yes, and it's hard to tell because you almost feel like she wouldn't go so far if it was just little quirks like wanting to eat pears where he used to hate pears. But the fact that he's actually having successful dating life with someone who they both at one point would have considered just not acceptable, and the fact that he's gotten so close to someone else just seems to really freak her out. That was my take on it.
Eventually she spends the episode basically chasing him, trying to cure him in very uncomfortable ways,
violent ways.
Yeah, which he obviously doesn't like. And eventually she confesses that she's just worried that since he changes his mind on so many things, he's going to change his mind about being her friend. But then after she says that, she also tells him to stop dating that other woman. So
yes.
You're still kind of left wondering, wait, what is going on?
Can I just say about Tendi, this is not the first time we've seen her be obsessive to the point that she's very excessive in whatever she is trying to do. Like whether it is become someone's friend who keeps rebutting her, or in this case, trying to fix her best friend in a very, probably very concerning medical procedures and probably unsanctioned. So, I just kept wondering, does anybody realize she has all this technology, medical technology, is running around trying to perform surgery on somebody?
It's a very good question. But yeah, I agree. Tandy's obsessiveness and determination, relentlessness.
Very good word. She's relentless.
She is relentless. Yes. Basically, when she wants to do something, she is going to do it, whether you like it or not. And it also fits with, we saw before that she is very worried about people liking her. So it also fits, into that characteristic.
Very true. So the very last part of the episode is what's going on with Boimler? And
Yeah.
everybody keeps talking about how he must be so happy where he is on the Titan, serving under Riker.
Yeah.
And you get a brief look at him on the bridge, and he's terrified.
Yeah. The Titan is very clearly seeing much more action than the Cerritos, and he is not liking it.
Yeah, he seems like a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
His expectations on being on the Titan, were not... whatever he expected, he is inundated with something else, and it's just doesn't seem to be his cup of tea. So there'll be more about that in the next episode.
So yeah, I like this first episode. I thought it was kind of interesting seeing the dynamic between Mariner and her mother. But I was wondering, because like you said, we kind of expected either Boimler to come back or to see how they manage without Boimler, and we didn't really get the group without Boimler. There was a one-off Mariner and her mother story, and the usual Tandy and Rutherford story.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was a sort of transitional episode.
I agree. I think they did that on purpose because of the fact that normally we see the 4 ensigns paired off together in some type of storyline, and we're missing one. And it just it feels like that. So it feels like Mariner being close to her mom, working closely with her mom, is not really a substitute for that best friend that she had in Boimler and the things that she did with him. It's interesting, but I liked where we landed with Mariner and her mom, and that is that they agree that they don't need to work closely together because they don't work well.
Yeah.
If it's all the time. So, and just because their philosophies are different, their approaches to the job. They can still be mom and daughter who respect each other and can be close, but as far as being like captain and ensign, it's probably best that they pick and choose when they work together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Want to move on to the second episode?
Yes.
Okay, so the second episode is called Kayshon, His Eyes Open. And you can already spot the reference, to the what was their names? These aliens.
The Tamarins.
Yeah, the Tamarins from the
Next Generation.
Famous and Next Generation episode. Yeah, so there is the new Tamarin Starfleet officer on the Cerritos, and there is also a new ensign joining the ensigns, Mariner and their group. And the funny thing is, despite the fact the title of the episode references the Tamarins and the fact that you kind of expect the Tamarin to be the main character, he just doesn't do much.
For a good reason.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about.
Yeah. So the episode starts with introducing us to the new ensign. His name is Jet Menhaver.
Yes.
Menhaver?
Yeah.
Jet Menhaver. And he seems to kind of join the group that, Mariner, Tandy, and Rutherford as the 4th guy. But from the moment he joins up, he seems to kind of not gel with them. He doesn't go immediately after Mariner like she likes it. There is a lot of friction there. He's not the same kind of person as Boimler, basically. And that's the main point of friction between them. He's not a follower. He's not meek. He's not afraid of voicing his opinions.
He doesn't need a mentor.
Yeah, he doesn't need a mentor, and he doesn't understand why one ensign is a leader because they're all ensigns. So he and Mariner have this sort of rivalry set up, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then the group is assigned along with the new officer Kayshon, he's the security officer, right?
Yes.
Yes, because Shax sadly died last season. So they are assigned to him to explore and kind of neutralize a ship of a collector, which is a person in the Star Trek universe who collects things, which is also a reference to a TNG episode where Data was collected by one of such collectors. They like rare things, they like powerful things. So their ships contain a lot of very rare, very powerful, dangerous things, and Starfleet needs to neutralize them. And through this mission that they inevitably fuck up, we kind of see this, this friction between Mariner and Manhaver growing and growing. And just, what did you think about him being a part of the group?
Well, I think it was actually very clever because you see immediately what happens when there's someone else who's like Mariner wants to take charge if there's a need to. She says immediately, you can ask me anything. I'm kind of the informal leader of the ensigns. So, and he just immediately is taken aback, like, you.
Exactly.
So you can see right away that he's probably not going to mesh well with her because rivals, he immediately starts competing with her in the sonic shower, communal shower. Causes everybody else to flee. So in the middle of their little tiff, competition, let me put it that way. But I was actually kind of hopeful that it would work out. And I felt like we got to a point where it seemed like he might be an interesting character. So I'd like to talk more about that at the end. But
yeah, I completely agree with you. I really enjoyed that they went like the completely opposite of Boimler joining the group. Like, he is the anti-Boimler, basically.
Yeah. And like, why would he come in there expecting he's going to be like the Boimler replacement? And yet, that's what Mariner's expectation was like, oh, look, it's almost like, hey, I got another lackey. I really like the fact that, he's not just going to roll over and take orders.
Yeah, I mean, literally the first scene we have them together in the shower, we see Boimler says, like, oh, you should do that. Boimler always did that. And he says, well, I'm not Boimler, and Boimler isn't here, so I'm going to do what I do. Which, I really liked it. So, they argue and bicker the whole episode until they figure out that, there is no set laws that means that one of them has to be a leader. They both kept arguing and, butting heads over whose way is better when Tandy and Rutherford were having just as good, even better ideas than them, but they didn't voice them because, Mariner and Jet have such, strong personalities that they kind of don't let anyone else put in their own ideas.
And probably Tandy and Rutherford are used to Mariner taking charge, and they're just like, oh, well, why would we offer an opinion or a solution when you guys make all the calls anyway? Like, we're just they're used to it. I think you can see that.
Exactly. And also Kayshon becomes a doll in like the first 10 minutes, 5 minutes of the episode, so he isn't much help.
He gets carted around. So basically, they are cataloging things on the ship and picking out the things that are dangerous that need to be removed, and they trigger the alarm system, which the ship goes on the defensive, thinking they're thieves trying to steal all the collected items. So they have to figure out how to deal with it. Mariner's solution is, let's fight back. And Manaver's solution is, let's get off the ship. So Then, as you said, Kayshon, the actual leader, is made defunct because he's transformed into
Yeah.
a rag doll. And
Yeah.
in a crisis situation, you have the two ensigns, Mariner and Manover, basically butting heads over the best way to get off the ship.
Yeah.
And wow, we should probably spend a moment talking about some of the things on the ship. On
Yeah.
that ship,
That
that was
was
amazing.
that was such an opportunity for references upon references.
Yeah,
Um, there are so many things there. Well, the most obvious one was the giant skeleton of giant Spock,
yeah.
which I'm sad to know the giant Spock is dead.
The first thing I saw when they referenced the collector ship was the salt vampire.
Yes, yes, yeah, it's
And
like
I was
was like
like,
a statue or something of
yeah.
Salt Vampire.
I was like, wait a minute. I thought that was in Trelane. Because if you go back to the original series episode with Trelane, he
Yeah.
has supposedly the last salt vampire, like almost like taxidermied salt vampire, in his quarters, and yet you then see it in the collector's ship. So
Yeah.
I love that reference.
Yeah.
Goodness, Kalis's sex helmet.
Yeah, safety first. Yeah, it was a good night.
And the other comment I would make is sort of the leader of the Collectors Guild is keeping an eye on Starfleet and the things that they're handling. He immediately has something against Tendi because she's an Orion. You could just see that right away. Like, he looked pointedly at her like, don't steal anything.
Yeah.
He does it twice. And she takes great offense to that. So it's more like stereotyped, her being stereotyped because she's an Orion.
Yeah, I really like this. This. I wish they talked more about this kind of character point. I guess that she does deal a lot with stereotypes about Orions, because Orions, every time up until now, when we saw Orions, they were either sex slaves or slavers or pirates.
Yeah.
Basically, they're always criminals, and they're always the worst kind of criminals. So wherever she goes, she kind of stands out as an Orion, and everybody treats her accordingly. And she's very uncomfortable with this.
And it's interesting because even Mariner did that to her in the finale, and she was, clearly,
the episode before the finale.
Yeah, she was clearly not happy about that. To the point where she left the simulation, but here she's actually angry. And I don't blame her, because he's like, you thief. He immediately blames her as like activating the system or something of that nature.
Yeah, they deal with it in the third episode. Sort of.
Okay.
The B-plot of the episode it actually shows us Boimler's life on the Titan. The Titan is basically what people who aren't like huge fans of Star Trek may think Star Trek is like.
Agreed.
It's a very dark, serious action ship where people are always serious and do serious universe-saving things, and like.
It's an action movie.
It's an action movie. It's a spaceship that is constantly in an action movie, and Boimler is trying to fit in, but he's kind of like he's like a Star Trek fan, someone who watched all of the shows. He's like, I came here for the silly, stupid, fun stuff, not for this this action espionage crap. And he's sent on an undercover mission along with a few other officers, and he doesn't really fit in. They like all the they act like they like all the tough stuff. They act tough, they act businesslike, and he doesn't like that. And eventually, well, I'm kind of glad that they go the route of not making fun of him for it.
Yes.
Because in this episode, he's kind of like, I think he's kind of like the fan representative, and that he likes the silly stuff. He likes the original, fun part of Star Trek. The Star Trek shows have a lot of silly, fun stuff. That's part of their appeal, and he voices the people who like that. And when he finally admits it to his coworkers, they admit that they like it too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they all manage to bond over it.
Again, it's commentary on what Starfleet is supposed to be,
Yeah.
as opposed to what they have to deal with sometimes, some of the more militaristic type operations. But it's been said that at the core of what it is, Starfleet is a peacekeeping exploratory institution.
Yeah.
And people who join Starfleet like to explore, want to see the unknowns and meet new races and do all the typical type missions that you would expect to have in Starfleet, and not the crazy action-packed life-risking type operations that seems to happen on the Titan on a regular basis, because even Boimler can't keep up with all the notes on the things that happen to them.
Yeah.
It actually reminded me of the Abrams-verse movie, where it's the second movie, Into Darkness, where they're putting the torpedoes onto the Enterprise to go after Khan. And Scotty takes, offense to that. He says, I thought we were explorers. Like, why are we putting all these... Why are we acting like a military?
I agree. I think it's more of a meta commentary, though,
Yeah.
because one of the criticisms of the new Star Trek shows and the Abrams-verse movies is that they lost that, the fun, silly stuff that made Star Trek Star Trek.
Oh, it's absolutely that as well.
Yeah. So I felt like it was really just kind of like, that fans of Star Trek should just come out and say, we like Star Trek because of the silly fun stuff, not just because it's action in space.
Exactly. Like, we like to watch people play in the string quartet.
Yeah, we like that.
And, the ship's officers play poker and have silly, like, little interactions in the holodeck with people. And so clearly Boimler has realized what he thought would be an amazing opportunity on the Titan. While it is still an opportunity, it's not what he thought it was.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like it.
Well, I don't think that he completely doesn't like it, but just that he hasn't found his footing yet. Because at the end of the episode, he does manage to fit in, because he opens up about what he wants and what he cares about. And he actually manages to find, sympathy among the crew. Like, yeah, we agree with you. We also like that thing. And it's this knowledge. It's his knowledge of those silly stuff that ends up saving the day, because during their espionage mission, they get caught, and because he remembers the episode, basically remembers, I guess, the incident where Riker got a clone of himself because of some transporter malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
He manages to have them escape by recreating this malfunction, but of course he creates his own clone, his own transporter clone. And, well, they do a toss-up, and one of them stays on the Titan, and the other one goes back to being an ensign on the Cerritos.
Are we to assume that the original Boimler is the one who gets sent back to the Cerritos?
I don't know, actually.
Because I feel like they kept saying his clone is on the Titan, his clone is on the Titan. And in my mind I was going, are you saying that's like not original Boimler, but duplicate Boimler that's on the Titan? Like, I don't know that it matters, because they're supposed to be exact copies of each other. It just, in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, where's original Boimler? Because I'm so used to, like, the original series, like, transporter malfunctions where one of the duplicates is not quite a clone. It's messed up somehow.
I got the impression that they said that he's the original, and the other one is just called... the other one has a new name. He's called William. or
Yeah.
something. But I also got the impression from the last few moments that they don't actually know who's the original and who's the clone.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Because I was also wondering, could that be a plot point later on in the show?
I'm guessing it will be.
Yeah.
That's my guess. But before that, I'll finish recapping the episode. So, on the collector's ship, Tandy and Rutherford save the day. They all manage to escape. They get the Kayshon doll to the med bay. Um, it seems like Jet is kind of starting to fit in with the group. And then, of course, Boimler comes back. And the moment they see Boimler, they just kind of shoo Jet away. Like, let's go back to the old routine. Um, yeah, so that's what happens. And Jet looks kind of upset that he has to live. Kind of angry, actually.
To me, yeah, it almost looks like it's frustration, but almost like he expected it. Like when you're used to like good things not not sticking around or something. Anyway, this is the point at where I was like, can we keep Jet?
I thought so too. I really like Jet. I like the new dynamic. I like the friction. I like the way he fit in. I want to see more of that.
I wanted to see more of him challenging Mariner because she does everybody else really is sort of the follower, right, in that group
Yeah.
when things are going down. And it's not that
Yeah,
Mariner's
exactly.
not good at what she does and comes up with good solutions, but sometimes she needs to be put in her place or needs to be challenged because her way's not the only way. And that's what Jet was doing. And you know what? She eventually came to respect that. And I
Yeah.
thought maybe she could learn to have a partner and not a follower. And then they
Yeah.
would actually be amazing together.
I thought so too. I thought he was so interesting. Like I said, I thought he was so interesting, and I wanted to see more of his interaction with the group. But then Boimler came back, so everything went back to normal.
Yeah. So the other thing that was going on in this episode, very minor, was Captain Freeman got her performance review back. She was really hung up on the fact that they said she's a micromanager. Which, no surprise,
Yeah.
because she's been doing that since the beginning.
Yeah.
And nobody on the ship was surprised, but because of that, she was trying very hard not to contact Kayshon and his team to see what was going on, which is why she doesn't learn till the last minute that all hell is broken loose.
Yeah.
And Kayshon is now a doll.
And don't worry, Kayshon came back to his normal self by the end.
I love how they really play up the Tamarin, just thought their whole communication, the way that they communicate in like phrases or whatever it is. And I like how they show that everybody on board knows that and tries hard to like interpret what he's actually saying.
Yeah. But he's learning like the regular standard Starfleet language. But he still kind of peppers in those phrases from time to time, and it's interesting. It's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish we'd seen more of him. It could have been fun.
Well, if he is Shax's replacement, we probably should see more of him.
Should I spoil you?
No. Okay. Let's just say, in theory, he would stick around, but it is lower decks, so anything could happen to anybody. Yeah. Before you know it, you could like rip your head off and be a giant head in space, and
yeah. I mean, it's true to Star Trek. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Like, literally anything can happen to anyone. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this episode a lot more than the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was disappointed that Boimler is back and Jet has to leave.
I would say the episode, like the end of the episode, was the letdown for me, just because Boimler showed back up. But again, expectation was yes, he would come back because he's part of the basically the quartet that makes up the ensigns in the lower deck that we're following through their character arcs. So Maybe he'll actually get a character arc.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because he thought he got what he thought he wanted, and it turns out not to be as good as what he had before.
I'm not so sure about that. I think if he had a choice, I think he would have chosen to stay on the Titan. I think he was starting to find his footing, and it just took time. I mean, at first he wasn't that great, that happy as an ensign in the Cerritos, but he also found his place there.
Yeah, but I also think he's not. I don't think he's going to be too upset about the fact that he's back on the Cerritos with his friends.
Yeah, probably not. But at the same time, I think it's not. It's probably not the last time we're going to see his clone.
Yeah.
His clone is probably coming back in some capacity.
Yeah.
Also, is it just me, or that when his clone was like waving goodbye, he gave him kind of a mean look, like?
This is why I was totally thinking the evil version of Kirk from the from the clone transporter. Well, not the evil version, but the
the good and bad,
the good and bad,
split.
right? So. Yeah. Was totally expecting if you're going to have an accident like that and have a clone, it's going to be
an evil clone.
It's going to be an evil clone. It is Star Trek. So
yeah.
I'm
now that you're saying that, yeah. I think that might be it. Maybe it is an evil clone.
I'm fully expecting that, because Boimler he is smart. He does like to suck up and stuff. Like that is what the clone is doing. He's playing a role. He's probably going to use that to his advantage to do something. I don't know what, but we'll see.
Yeah, maybe it's not even a clone. Maybe it's like Mirror Boimler.
Oh no, that would be amazing.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what's going on with Stevens?
Stevens
is officer who is obsessed with Ransom.
Well, that's basically what's going on with him. He's obsessed with Ransom.
Because the moment Ransom turns into Gary Mitchell type person and says he's going to take over everything, the guy's like, amazing! I worship you now. And I'm like, you worshipped him before. What's going on? But I can't figure out how Ransom feels about it, because at one point he's just like, Stevens, get away from me. Like, don't bother me right now. And then, at the end of the episode, Ransom is stuck in the medical bay. He just doesn't seem to care that Stevens is sitting there reading him a bedtime story or whatever he's doing.
I think they're friends. I think Ransom strikes me as the type of guy that enjoys this kind of attention most of the time. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he's tired of it, but mostly just it strokes his ego. So
yeah, Well, you know how I hate to make the comparison, but sometimes when you have a villain set up, you have a duo, and one's like the leader, and the other one's the sycophant. Yeah. And is basically a little helper of the villain and does everything he says and thinks he's wonderful. And I kind of get those vibes, but without the villain aspect.
I think it's just because usually villains are egotistical. That's an evil trait. And Ransom has a huge ego. It's just that's why it is there.
That's why his head got so big.
Exactly. I mean, it's not the first time we saw that Ransom has a huge ego.
Yeah. So Stevens is a minor reoccurring character, and Jet is actually a reoccurring character because we saw him originally in season 1 as the sort of mistaken love interest of Boimler's girlfriend, Barbara.
Yeah.
So at some point in the back of my mind, when Jet showed up, I was going, when did he come onto the Cerritos? They said something like he's being transferred to Beta Shift, which is apparently what Mariner, Tendi, and Rutherford are working. And I'm like, but when did he come to the ship? And how long has he been on the ship that he's been on another shift?
I think he's always been on the ship. Even in the episode with Boimler's girlfriend, he was on the ship.
Then I must have been mistaken, because I thought he was part of Barbara's... He was Barbara's co-worker. because
No, I
they
think he
knew
was
each
on
other.
Cerritos. Well, yeah, but I think he was on the Cerritos.
Yeah, so I think that's just my misunderstanding there. But interesting. So I wonder if he's going to get transferred now that Boimler has come back to
I don't,
reclaim his position.
maybe, but I don't think so. I think we're going to see more of Jack too. I
Okay.
think he's going to come back at some capacity too.
I hope so, because he seemed
Me
competent.
too. Yeah. Though I'm not sure if he's going to come back as a good character or as a sort of villain, like not really villain, but
Yeah.
sort of like, you know, kind of jaded and disappointed from the group.
As long as he's not another Fletcher. The guy who tried to expand his mind
Yeah, yeah.
by attaching it
Well,
to some engine cores.
well, thankfully, I don't think Jet is that stupid,
No.
but who knows?
Like I said, he actually seemed competent.
Yeah.
And he also seemed to know, like, when to follow the protocol given their station, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, we don't actually need to make these command decisions, Mariner. You know, we can't just get the heck off the ship like we're supposed to. Can I ask you about sonic showers?
You can ask.
Because I've never understood them, how they work, and I don't think I ever expected them to be like, and it makes sense in the context of lower decks, but like communal sonic showers where they all
I
just
think, yeah.
I was just like,
I think I think it's just a joke. Like they're communal sleeping quarters. Like they just sleep in the hallway and they have communal showers because they're lower decks.
Exactly. That's what I was like. They have to share everything in the lower decks.
Yeah,
So of course they're going to have communal showers. I was just like, they don't even have partitions.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I guess in the future you're much less bothered by nudity.
Except unless you're Boimler.
Unless you're Boimler, of course.
I dare say we've covered most of everything. Aside from, you having seen some more episodes, what's your expectation for the second half of the season?
Well, as I said, I expect Boimler's clone to return, and I also expect to see Jet again.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see more of the Orions. I'm sorry, I just love the Orions. What we've seen so far, with not a lot, was so fascinating and interesting. I want to see more. Yeah, and that's honestly that's basically it.
In season 1, we're all about Mariner's character arc. Like, why is she got this chip on her shoulder and can't work with her mom? Doesn't tell anybody who her mom is. And, season 2 starts out cat's out of the bag. She's openly, like, trying to work with her mom. Do you get a feeling for, is there anything else to resolve there between the two of them? And how would that be shown in season 2, if so?
Well, I don't think there is much to resolve, but there is this story of Captain Freeman possibly getting a promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what will happen to Mariner under a different captain.
That's a good point. That would be interesting to change the captain's seat. But it's not that like she hasn't worked under someone who isn't her mom before.
Yeah, but she always got, kicked out.
Yeah, true.
Because of that.
True.
Because her mother was basically the last person willing to accept her for a job on a starship. I do wonder, I don't know if they're going to go that route because I don't think they're going to write Captain Freeman off the show.
Personally, I hope not because I like her.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So I am, but seeing Mariner under a different captain would also be interesting.
We got a fair amount of like characters from, I'd say, Mariner's past and just like her days at the academy and we got to see how it was when she was working on other ships. I wonder if that trend will continue.
Yeah, I kind of hope so. She sounds like she has an interesting past. And yeah, I hope we get more, but I think they kind of maybe thought we got enough of Mariner's past in the first season. maybe we should focus on someone else. I would also understand that.
Mm-hmm. And Tendi's a great choice for that because of the mysteriousness around her being an Orion and why she's in Starfleet. But that aside, what do you think's going to happen with Rutherford and Tendi?
I think they're going in the romantic direction.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
Here's a question for you. Do you think they'll go in the romantic direction for Boimler and Mariner?
I do not. And I also hope not.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's just so many better options.
I agree, but I'll say that in the episodes that I watched, I saw some warning signs that they may be going that way. I, for one, am not on board. I don't want that to happen.
You can't see my face right now, Soda, but I'm cringing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might make me uncomfortable because I just am not a fan of Boimler. I don't I don't really see his merit as a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I certainly just don't see how romantically he and Mariner might work together. They're quote best friends. Mentor and mentee, okay?
Yeah.
But they're so different and I don't always see where they like balance each other out. It almost seems like they're just always disagreeing.
Yeah, but they're always disagreeing, and also Mariner has like this power to drag him after her.
She does.
Even
She does.
yeah,
Boimler is a follower for sure. He,
yeah,
if she says jump, he'll complain about it, but he'll do it.
yeah,
So, I just don't think that, personally, I don't think that dynamic makes for a good relationship.
yeah. I agree. I also don't think it makes for an interesting
Yeah.
relationship.
Sometimes I don't think it makes for a good friendship either. I almost like, when we came into Lower Decks in the first season, it's like we just, oh, they're best friends. We just had to assume that. But the
Yeah,
more we got to know their characters, I kept thinking, why would these two be friends? But that might be the whole purpose of the show. Like, they're an odd couple. I don't know.
yeah. I get it. That they are kind of an odd couple, and that's okay by me. But like an odd couple of friends, not an odd couple.
Yeah. And I can't tell if Mariner's more obsessed with being his friend than Boimler is obsessed with being her friend.
I don't know. I think at first it seems to me like she wanted to be his friend more than he wanted to be her friend. But she was like, oh, you're such a young, cute, fresh-faced baby.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you the ways of the world.
Yeah. Well, that is certainly something to be on the lookout for.
Yeah.
But I hope in the meantime we continue to get some more awesome like storylines and references and jokes and just ridiculousness that is the Lower Decks.
Yes.
It's entertaining for sure.
It's entertaining. I honestly think it's my favorite current Star Trek show.
I agree. It's not heavy like the other
It's
ones,
not.
but it's intriguing enough that you keep watching because you do get invested in some of the characters. And you also get a great laugh out of just the ridiculousness they have to deal with.
It's serious enough. Yeah, it's serious enough that it's not a completely comedic show, but it's not like heavy enough that you're like, oh, this is just a serious thriller thing.
Mm-hmm.
It manages to balance humor and actual characters and fun.
And I love meta. I love any show that is self-aware enough to address like the things that fans think about.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like fan service. Like
Right.
yeah, obviously longtime fans are going to find a lot of entertaining things, but like people who don't know Star Trek can also totally watch this.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, do we have anything else to add?
I've said everything that I want to say about those episodes.
So have I. That's our review of the first two episodes of season 2 of Lower Decks. At some point, once season 2 is fully available, Soda and I will come back for a review of the the season itself, and we will share our thoughts and opinions on that with you. Until then, thanks everyone, and have a good day.
Goodbye.